The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with dozens of different voices. Creatures from across the known galaxy sat in their seats, talking in languages that sounded like music, clicks, and growls all mixed together. The dome above them showed the stars outside, millions of tiny lights against the black of space. Minhee walked down the center aisle carrying her datapad. Her hands shook just a little. She had been waiting 3 years for this chance to speak. To the council. 3 years of research. 3 years of being laughed at by other scientists. 3 years of proof that everyone said was fake. The speaker, a tall blue creature with 4 arms, raised one hand. The noise in the hall slowly died down. The council will now hear from Minhee, xenobiologist of the Outer Rim Research Station, the speaker announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. Minhee stepped up to the speaking platform. She looked out at all the alien faces staring back at her. Some looked curious. Most looked bored. A few looked annoyed that their time was being wasted. She took a deep breath and began. Honored members of the council, I come before you today with proof of something that will change how we see our galaxy's history, Minhee said. Her voice was steady now. For 3,000 years, stories have been told across dozens of worlds about a species called humans. Most of you know these stories. You probably heard them as children. A few creatures in the audience made sounds that might have been laughter. The speaker's translator turned it into actual laughter that Minhee could understand. The stories say these humans came from a blue world called Earth, Minhee continued. They say humans walked on 2 legs, had no fur or scales, and were very good at fighting and building things. Most of you think these are just stories, myths, tales to scare young ones or teach lessons. Dr. Velinara, an insect-like creature with multiple eyes, clicked her mandibles together. We know why you are here, young researcher. You think you have found proof that these fairy tales are real. But every few years, someone claims the same thing. Every time they are wrong. Minhee nodded. I know others have tried before me. But I have something they did not have. She touched her datapad and a large hologram appeared above the platform. It showed a star map with dozens of worlds marked in red. These are archaeological sites I have visited over the past 5 years. Minhee said. On each world, I found the same things. Buildings made with a type of metal that we do not use anymore. Tools designed for creatures with 5 fingers on each hand. And most important, genetic material. The hologram changed to show what looked like microscopic structures. This is DNA from 17 different worlds, Minhee explained. All of it matches the descriptions from the old stories. 2 arms, 2 legs, no tail. Forward-facing eyes. The genetic code is unlike any known species in our current galaxy. Captain Rixton, a bird-like creature with golden feathers, stood up from his seat. Even if what you show us is real, it proves nothing. These could be remains from any unknown species. Why do you insist they are from your mythical humans? Minhee had expected this question. She touched her datapad again. Because of this. She said. The hologram changed to show writing. Strange symbols that looked nothing like any current galactic language. I found this writing on 12 different worlds. It took me 2 years to translate even small parts of it. But I did translate some. And what I found changed everything. She pointed to part of the writing. This section talks about their home world. They call it Earth. They describe it as mostly water, with large land masses and 1 moon. They talk about animals that match creatures from the old stories. Animals called dogs and cats and horses. The audience was quieter now. Even the ones who had been laughing were paying attention. This section, Minhee continued, pointing to another part, talks about their technology. They describe ships that could travel between stars, weapons that could destroy entire cities, and machines that could think like living beings. Some of this technology is more advanced than what we have today. Dr. Velinara's eyes focused on The hologram. You said you could only translate small parts. How do we know you translated correctly? Because I found the same information written in 3 different languages on 3 different worlds, Minhee answered. The humans did not just have one language, they had hundreds. And they wrote their history in many of them. Admiral Kethver had been sitting quietly in the back of the chamber. Now he stood up slowly. He was massive, even for his reptilian species. His scales were dark green, and his eyes were yellow like a snake's. "Let us say, for a moment, that your evidence is real," he said in a voice like grinding stone. "Let us say these humans existed. Where are they now? Why have we seen no trace of them for 3,000 years? Minhee felt her heart beat faster. This was the question she had been dreading. "I believe something happened to them," she said quietly. "Something terrible. In the last pieces of writing I found, they talk about running. They talk about an enemy that was hunting them across the galaxy. They talk about having to leave their worlds behind." "What kind of enemy?" Admiral Kethver asked. His yellow eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. "I don't know," Minhee admitted. "The writing I found was damaged. But whatever it was, it scared them enough to abandon entire planets." The chamber was completely silent now. Even the background hum of the station's life support system seemed louder. The speaker raised his hand again. "This is all very interesting, researcher Minhee, but stories and old writing are not proof. Even if these humans existed, they are clearly gone now. What do you want the Council to do with this information?" Before Minhee could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed in the holographic display above, then changed to show an emergency message. A young officer ran into the chamber and whispered something to the speaker. The blue creature's 4 eyes went wide. "Members of the Council," the speaker announced, his voice tight with worry. "We have just received urgent reports from our long-range sensor stations. Massive energy signatures have been detected in the Void Sector." Admiral Kethver stepped forward. "The Void Sector has been empty for centuries. Our ships have scanned that region dozens of times." "Not anymore," the speaker replied. "The energy readings are unlike anything we have ever seen. Multiple ships are being dispatched to investigate." Minhee stood on the platform, forgotten for the moment as the Council erupted into worried discussions. She looked at her datapad, then at the star map still floating above her dot. The Void Sector was exactly where her research said the last human ships had been heading 3,000 years ago. Far away, in the cold darkness of space, something that had been sleeping for 3 millennia was beginning to wake up. Inside a damaged ship drifting among the debris of a dead civilization, cryo chambers that had been running on emergency power for thousands of years finally had enough energy to complete their wake-up cycles. Jaewoo opened his eyes for the first time in 3,000 years. The world around him was dark and cold and smelled like metal and recycled air, but he was alive. Against all odds, he was still alive. He did not know yet that his people had become myths. He did not know that the galaxy had forgotten humanity ever existed. All he knew was that he had to find his daughter and figure out where they were. The last human in the galaxy was awake, and the galaxy was about to remember why they had been so afraid. The Council investigation fleet arrived at the Void Sector 3 days later. Captain Rixton commanded the lead vessel, a sleek exploration ship built for long-range missions. Behind him followed 2 research ships and a military escort. He stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the main screen. What they found there changed everything. "By the ancient stars," whispered Dr. Velinara as the images came through. "What is all of this?" Floating in the darkness of space was a massive graveyard. Thousands of ship hulls drifted in the void, some as large as cities. The metal was strange, unlike anything in current galactic databases. But it was clearly manufactured, clearly built by intelligent hands. "Captain," the sensor officer called. "Out." I'm reading debris fields stretching across 12 light minutes. Some of these ships are huge, bigger than our largest stations. Captain Rixton's feathers ruffled with excitement. Take us closer, but carefully. We don't know what destroyed these vessels. As they moved deeper into the debris field, more details became clear. The ship designs were advanced, but different from current technology. They were built with curves and angles that seemed almost artistic. Many were badly damaged, as if they had been in a terrible battle. There, Min-Hee pointed, at a section of wreckage. That looks like it might have living areas. Can we board it? The boarding party included Min-Hee, Dr. Velinara, and 6 security officers. They crossed to the wreck in a small shuttle and cut through an airlock that had been sealed for thousands of years. Inside, they found wonders and horrors. The corridors were sized for creatures about Min-Hee's height. The walls had writings in the same language she had been studying, but most shocking of all were the bodies. These match your descriptions exactly, Dr. Velinara said as she scanned one of the preserved corpses. 2 arms, 2 legs, no fur or scales, but look at this bone density. Look at these muscle attachments. These creatures were incredibly strong. Min-Hee knelt beside one of the bodies. It was wearing some kind of uniform with symbols on it. The face was peaceful, as if the person had died quickly. They're real, she whispered. They were really real. The ship's computers were damaged but not completely destroyed. Dr. Velinara managed to access some of the data files. What they found made them all go quiet. The files told a story of running and hiding. The humans had been fleeing across the galaxy for hundreds of years. Their home world, Earth, had been destroyed by something they called the hegemony. World after world had fallen as this enemy hunted them down. Listen to this, Dr. Velinara said as she played an audio file. The voice was strange but somehow familiar, speaking in the ancient human language that Min-Hee had been learning. This is Tay Bin, colony leader of the vessel New Hope. If anyone finds this record, know that we tried. We tried to find a place where our children could be safe. But they followed us here too. The hegemony ships appeared this morning. We cannot run anymore. We cannot fight them. They are too strong, too many. I am activating the sleep ships. Maybe some of us will survive long enough for the galaxy to change. Maybe someday it will be safe to wake up. The recording ended with the sound of alarms and explosions. Captain Rixton's voice came through their communicators. Boarding team, you need to return immediately. Our long-range sensors are detecting ships approaching fast. Big ships. They hurried back to their vessels, carrying what data they could. As they prepared to leave the debris field, the approaching ships came into view. Min-Hee had never seen anything like them. They were dark, angular vessels that seemed to eat light rather than reflect it. They moved in perfect formation, like a pack of predators. Those designs, Captain Rixton said quietly. I've seen them before. In the oldest military databases. Ships like that were reported in the Outer Rim conflicts 3,000 years ago. The lead ship was massive, easily 10 times the size of their exploration vessel. It had weapons that glowed with menacing energy and armor that looked like it had never been scratched. This is Admiral Kethver of the Hegemony Fleet, came a transmission in perfect galactic standard. You are trespassing in restricted space. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Captain Rixton looked at his crew. Hegemony? I thought that was just another old legend. Captain, the communications officer called out urgently. They're charging. Weapons, all of them. On the edge of the debris field, something else was happening. Deep inside the largest of the human wrecks, emergency systems that had been running on minimum power for 3,000 years finally had enough energy to complete their programmed tasks. Jae-woo pulled himself out of the cryo chamber, his body aching from the long sleep. The ship around him was dark and cold. Most systems were offline. But he was alive, and that meant the plan had worked, at least partially. "Computer," he said in the old human language. "Status report. Captain J. Wu, the ship's artificial." Intelligence replied, "You have been in cryosleep for 3,014 years. Main power is at 4%. Life support is minimal. Hull integrity is compromised in sections 7 through 12. J. Wu moved carefully through the dark corridors to the other cryochambers. Most were dark, their occupants long dead when power had failed over the centuries. But one still showed active readings, his daughter. Haijin was still alive. He didn't wake her yet. She was safer sleeping until he could figure out their situation. Instead, he made his way to what was left of the bridge. Through the cracked viewports, he could see lights in the distance. Ships, active ships with working engines and weapons. "Computer, can you identify those vessels?" "Negative, Captain. However, I am detecting weapon signatures consistent with hegemony technology." J. Wu felt his blood turn cold. After 3,000 years, they had found the last humans again. But as he looked at the sensor readings, he realized something else. There were other ships out there too. Ships with different designs, different energy signatures. The galaxy had changed while humanity slept. "Computer, how many of our weapon systems are still functional?" "Defensive systems are at 30%. Capacity, primary weapons are offline. However, the Nova device remains intact and charged." J. Wu closed his eyes. The Nova device was humanity's last resort, a weapon so powerful that using it meant certain death for anyone nearby. It had been installed on the colony ships as a final option if the hegemony found them. Through the viewport, he watched the strange new ships trying to escape from the hegemony fleet. They were outgunned and outnumbered. They would all die just like every other species that had gotten in the hegemony's way, unless someone stopped it. J. Wu began powering up what remained of his ship's systems. The last human was about to remind the galaxy why the hegemony had spent so much effort hunting his people down. The sleeping giant was waking up, and it was angry. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the council ships scramble to escape. His yellow eyes showed no emotion as he gave orders to his fleet. "Surround them," he commanded. "Do not let any vessel leave this sector. We cannot allow word of this discovery to spread." The hegemony ships moved like a well-trained hunting pack. They had been doing this for thousands of years, finding species that might become threats and eliminating them before they could grow. "Too strong." Captain Rixton's voice crackled over the communication system. "Admiral Kethver, we are peaceful researchers. We have done nothing wrong. Why are you threatening us?" Kethver almost smiled. The same words, always the same words. Every species said them when the hegemony came. "You have discovered something." "That should have stayed buried," Kethver replied. "The humans are dead. They have been dead for 3,000 years. That is how it must remain." On the research ship, Dr. Velinara was frantically copying data from the human computers. "Min-He, help me with this. We need to preserve as much as we can." Min-He worked beside her, downloading files and genetic samples. "Why are they so afraid of people finding out about humans? What's so dangerous about ancient history?" "I don't think it's just history," Dr. Velinara replied as she watched her screens. "Look at this data. The humans weren't just running from the hegemony. They were fighting back and winning." The files showed battle reports from the last days of the human exodus. Ship-to-ship combat records that defied belief. Single human vessels taking on entire hegemony fleets. Weapons that could crack planets. Technology that bent the laws of physics. "No wonder they wanted everyone to think humans were myths," Min-He breathed. "If other species learned what humans could do, they might try to become like them." Captain Rixton's voice came over the intercom. "All hands, prepare for combat. They're not going to let us leave." The first hegemony ship opened fire without warning. Energy beams lanced across space, striking the Council escort vessel. The ship's shields flared and died. The hull cracked open like an egg. "Return fire," Captain Rixton ordered, but his weapons were no match for hegemony technology. His shots barely scratched their armor. More hegemony ships joined the attack. Within minutes, 2 of the Council vessels were destroyed. Captain Rixton's ship was badly damaged and losing air. Dr. Velinara's research vessel was captured, tractored. And by the flagship Min, he managed to escape in a damaged shuttle, carrying what data she could save. As she fled toward the edge of the system, she watched the slaughter through her rear sensors. Admiral Keffer boarded the captured research ship personally. He found Dr. Velinara in her laboratory, still trying to delete files. "Stop," he commanded. His voice was calm but deadly. "You will give me all the data you collected." Dr. Velinara's compound eyes focused on him with hatred. "Why? Why does it matter if people know the truth about humans?" Keffer studied the human specimens she had been examining. Even in death, they looked dangerous. Their bodies were built for violence, for survival in conditions that would kill most species. "Because," he said slowly, "humans were the only species that ever made us afraid." He activated a datapad and showed her recordings from the ancient war. Human ships moving impossibly fast, using weapons that the hegemony still didn't fully understand. Human soldiers fighting with a fury that bordered on insanity. "They were not like other species," Keffer continued. "Other races surrender when they are beaten. They accept their place in the galaxy. Humans never did. They kept coming back, kept getting stronger, kept finding new ways to hurt us." The recording showed the final battle over Earth. Hundreds of hegemony ships surrounding the blue world, pouring fire down on the surface. But even as their planet died, human ships kept launching from hidden bases, kept fighting back. "We had to destroy their entire world to stop them," Keffer said. "And even then, the survivors kept running, kept hiding, kept building weapons. For 800 years we hunted them across the galaxy. Every time we thought we had found the last colony, more would appear." Dr. Velinara stared at the images in horror and fascination. "How many died?" "Billions, on both sides. The war nearly broke us. That is why we made sure history forgot them. We turned them into myths, legends, stories told to children. It was safer that way." Deep in the debris field, Jae-woo was bringing his ship systems online one by one. The vessel was badly damaged but still functional. More importantly, its weapons were still intact. "Computer, show me the tactical situation." The main screen lit up with a display of the battle. The hegemony ships were arranged in a standard formation, confident in their superiority. They had stopped shooting because their prey was either dead or captured. "Computer, how many hegemony vessels?" 17. "Ships, Captain. 1 command vessel, 8 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers, 2 troop transports." Jae-woo studied the formation. It was the same pattern they had used 3,000 years ago. Apparently, some things never changed. "Computer, are the jump drives functional?" "Negative, Captain. Jump drives are offline. However, conventional engines are operational at 60% capacity." Jae-woo nodded. He hadn't expected to be able to run. This was going to be a fight. "Wake up the defender protocols," he said quietly. "Captain," the computer replied, "activating defender protocols will drain all remaining power reserves. Life support will fail in approximately 30 minutes. Do it." The ship around him began to change. Armor plates shifted into combat positions. Weapon systems that had been sleeping for millennia started charging. The hull reconfigured itself. From a colony vessel into something far more dangerous. On his flagship, Admiral Keffer felt a chill run down his spine as his sensors detected new energy readings. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "one of the human wrecks is powering up." Keffer looked at the sensor display. The energy signature was impossible. No ship that had been dead for 3,000 years should be able to generate that much. Power, all ships, he commanded. Target that vessel. Destroy it immediately. But as the hegemony fleet turned to engage the awakening human ship, Jay-Woo was already moving. His vessel accelerated out of the debris field at a speed that should have been impossible for something so damaged. The last human was coming to remind the galaxy what his species was capable of, and the hegemony was about to learn why they had worked so hard to make humanity extinct. The first shots from the hegemony fleet lit up space like angry stars. 17 ships focused their fire on the single human vessel emerging from the debris field. Energy beams that could melt asteroids struck Jay-Woo's ship from every direction. Human ship didn't even slow down. Impossible, Admiral Kethver whispered as he watched his fleet's most powerful weapon splash harmlessly against the human vessel's shields. Our weapons should have destroyed it instantly. Sir, his tactical officer reported. Their shield technology is unlike anything in our databases. The energy is being absorbed and redirected somehow. Jay-Woo sat in his command chair, watching the tactical display with cold eyes. The hegemony ships were exactly where he expected them to be. They had grown comfortable over the centuries, confident that nothing could challenge them. Computer, begin evasive pattern Alpha 7. Charge the primary batteries. His ship began to dance through space, moving in ways that defied conventional physics. It twisted and turned like a living thing, dodging between energy beams with impossible grace. Captain, the computer announced, primary batteries are charged. Targeting systems are online. Target their command ship first, Jay-Woo said. Full power. The human ship's main weapon fired for the first time in 3,000 years. It was not a beam or a missile. It was something that made space itself scream. The energy discharge tore through the fabric of reality, creating a wound in space-time that stretched from Jay-Woo's ship to Admiral Kethver's flagship. The massive hegemony vessel, built to withstand the firepower of entire fleets, simply ceased to exist. Where it had been, there was now only empty space and the fading echoes of twisted light. By the ancient gods, Dr. Velinara breathed from her prison cell aboard one of the remaining hegemony ships. She was watching through a porthole as impossible things happened outside. The human ship had not stopped with destroying the flagship. It was moving through the hegemony formation like a predator among prey, its weapons reaching out to touch ship after ship. Each time it fired, reality bent. Stars flickered as gravitational fields shifted. Space itself seemed to bleed colors that had no names. All ships, concentrate fire, the new hegemony commander ordered. Bring everything we have to bear on that vessel. The remaining 16 ships formed a sphere around the human ship and fired simultaneously. The combined energy was enough to sterilize a planet. The explosion was visible from the next star system. When the light faded, the human ship was still. There, its shields were down, its hull was glowing with heat, but it was still intact and still moving. How is it still functional? The hegemony commander demanded. Sir, came the reply, our sensors show the human vessel is rebuilding itself. The hull is repairing damage faster than we can inflict it. Jay-Woo smiled grimly as he felt his ship healing around him. Human technology had always been different from what other species developed. Where others built bigger weapons, humans built smarter ones. Where others focused on offense, humans focused on survival. Computer, status report. Hull integrity at 75% and rising. Weapon systems at full capacity. However, power reserves are at 15%. We can maintain combat operations for approximately 12 minutes. 12 minutes to finish what humanity had started 3,000 years ago. Computer, activate the Reaper protocol. Captain, the Reaper protocol is untested. It may destroy us along with the enemy. Do it. The human ship began to change again. Its hull flowed like liquid metal, reconfiguring itself into something that looked more like a weapon than a vessel. Ports opened along its sides, revealing devices that hummed with barely contained power. "What is that thing?" the hegemony commander asked as his sensors detected the new configuration. His answer came in the form of 12 simultaneous weapon discharges. But these were not like the previous shots. These weapons fired through folded space, bypassing shields and armor entirely. They struck the hegemony ships from the inside out. 6 ships exploded in perfect unison. The others scattered, trying to escape the impossible range of the human weapons. Min, he, still fleeing in her damaged shuttle, watched in amazement as the battle unfolded. The single human ship was systematically destroying one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. "Computer," she called to her shuttle's eye, "are you recording this?" "Yes, researcher Min He. However, I must note that these energy readings are beyond my ability to properly analyze. The human vessel appears to be using technology that violates several fundamental laws of physics." On the human ship, alarms were beginning to sound. The Reaper protocol was consuming power at an incredible rate. Jae-woo knew he had only minutes before his ship would be dead in space. "Computer, locate the troop transports. I want to save the prisoners if possible." "Troop transports are here and here," the computer replied, highlighting 2 ships on the tactical display. "However, they are moving to escape the battle area." Jae-woo made a decision that would have seemed impossible to anyone who didn't understand human nature. Instead of destroying the fleeing ships, he changed course to intercept them. The human ship caught up with the first transport in seconds. Instead of firing weapons, it extended mechanical arms that grabbed the hegemony vessel and held it fast. "Computer, can you access their systems?" "Accessing now, Captain. I have located the prisoner holding areas. Initiating emergency transport." Light filled the space between the 2 ships as the human teleportation system activated. Moments later, the survivors from the Council expedition materialized in Jae-woo's ship. Dr. Velinara found herself standing in a corridor that looked like it had been designed by angels and built by demons. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. "Where are we?" Captain Rixton asked, his golden feathers ruffled with confusion. "You're on a human ship," came a voice from the shadows. Jae-woo stepped into the light, and the aliens got their first look at a living human. He was tall and lean, with scars that spoke of old battles. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, and when he looked at them, they felt like they were being measured by a predator. "I am Jae-woo," he said in perfect galactic standard. "I was a colony ship captain. Now I am the last of my kind." "Last?" Dr. Velinara managed to ask. Jae-woo nodded toward a viewport where the remains of the hegemony fleet were still burning. "My daughter sleeps in cryostasis. She and I are all that remains of humanity." "Computer," he called out, "what is our power?" "Status, power reserves at 3%, Captain. Life support will fail in 8 minutes." Jae-woo looked at his guests with something that might have been sadness. "I'm sorry. I can get you to the escape pods, but I don't have enough power to get you home. What about you?" Captain Rixton asked. Jae-woo looked out at the stars. "I have one more thing to do. The hegemony thinks they've won because they made us extinct. It's time to show them they were wrong." He walked toward the bridge, leaving the aliens to stare after him. They had spent their lives thinking humans were myths. Now they understood that humans were something far more dangerous. They were legends that had come back to life, and the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. Jae-woo stood on the bridge of his dying ship, looking at the tactical display. 3 hegemony vessels remained, fleeing toward the edge of the system. His own ship had perhaps 5 minutes of power left, but he had one final card to play. "Computer, prepare my daughter's cryopod for emergency ejection. Program it to rendezvous with the Council shuttle." Captain, ejecting the pod will use our remaining power reserves. The ship will be dead in space. I know. Jay-Woo moved to a wall panel and pulled out an environmental suit. After you eject the pod, activate the Nova device. The computer was silent for a long moment. Captain, the Nova device will destroy everything within a light-minute radius, including this ship. That's the idea. Jay-Woo sealed his helmet and checked the suit's systems. The hegemony needs to know that humanity isn't extinct. They need to understand what happens when they threaten us. Through the ship's corridors, Dr. Velinara and the other survivors were making their way to the escape pods. The lights were dimming as power systems failed one by one. He's going to sacrifice himself, Captain Rixton realized as they reached the pod bay. He's going to die to save us. That's what humans do, Dr. Velinara said quietly. She had been studying the data from the human computers during their brief time aboard. They don't surrender. They don't retreat. They fight until there's nothing left to fight with, and then they keep fighting anyway. The escape pods launched just as Jay-Woo's daughter's cryochamber was ejected toward Min-Hee's shuttle. The young researcher caught the pod with her ship's grappling systems, not fully understanding what was inside. On the human ship, Jay-Woo was alone now. The lights had failed completely. Life support was gone. Only the emergency systems were still running, powered by the last dregs of the ship's energy reserves. Computer, he said into the darkness. Nova device status. Device is armed and ready, Captain. Are you certain about this course of action? Jay-Woo looked through the viewport. At the fleeing hegemony ships, they thought they had won. They thought they had destroyed the last human. They spent 3,000 years making sure the galaxy forgot us, he said. Time to remind them why we were worth forgetting. Nova device activated. Detonation in 60 seconds. Jay-Woo walked through his ship one last time, visiting the places where his people had lived and dreamed of finding a new home. The hydroponics bays where they had grown food. The recreation areas where children had played. The libraries where they had stored the sum total of human knowledge and culture. Not all of it would die with him. But his daughter would live, and the galaxy would remember. 30 seconds to detonation. Through his suit radio, he could hear panicked transmissions from the hegemony ships as they detected the energy buildup. Unknown weapon detected. Energy readings are off the scale. All ships, maximum acceleration. We need to clear the blast radius. They wouldn't make it. Jay-Woo had made sure of that. 10 seconds to detonation. He stood on the bridge where he had commanded colony ships filled with hope, where he had made the desperate decisions that had kept his people alive for one more day, one more year, one more generation. Goodbye, Hai-Jin, he whispered. Daddy loves you. The Nova device detonated. For one brief, impossible moment, a new star was born in the void sector. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away, a pillar of fire that reached across space. Like the finger of an angry god, the remaining hegemony ships simply vanished, consumed by energies that turned matter into pure light. The debris field that had held the remains of human civilization was swept clean, leaving nothing but empty space and fading radiation. But from that fire, something incredible happened. As the explosion began to fade, a single figure emerged from the heart of the blast. Jay-Woo, protected by his environmental suit and something that might have been divine intervention, walked through the vacuum of space as if it were solid ground. His ship was gone. His weapons were gone. Everything that had made him powerful was destroyed. But he was alive, and he was moving toward the escape pods with impossible determination. Min-Hee's shuttle reached him first. She opened her cargo bay and brought him aboard, along with the cryopod containing his daughter. As he removed his helmet, she saw that his face was burned and his eyes were filled with pain, but he was smiling. Is she safe? Were his first words. She's fine, Min-Hee assured him. The cryo systems are stable, but how did you survive that explosion? Jae-woo looked out at the space where his ship had been. "Humans are hard to kill," he said simply. "We've had a lot of practice surviving impossible things." Dr. Velinara's escape pod docked with the shuttle a few minutes later. When she saw Jae-woo, her compound eyes went wide. "You walked out of a stellar explosion," she said in amazement. "I had something to live for," Jae-woo replied, looking at his daughter's cryopod. "Humans always do." The journey back to Council Space took 3 days. During that time, Jae-woo told them the true history of the galaxy. How the hegemony had been systematically eliminating species that showed too much potential. How humanity had been their greatest threat because humans refused to accept limits. "We weren't the strongest species," he explained. "We weren't the smartest or the fastest or the most numerous. But we were the most stubborn. When everyone else gave up, we kept trying. When everyone else accepted defeat, we looked for another way to win." "What will you do now?" Captain Rixton asked. "You and your daughter are the last humans alive. How do you rebuild from 2 people? Jae-woo smiled, and for the first time, it was a smile filled with hope instead of sadness. "We're not the last," he said. "We're just the first to wake up. Humanity built dozens of hidden colonies before the end. Ships full of our people, sleeping in cryostasis, waiting for the galaxy to be safe enough for us to return." He pulled up a star chart on the shuttle's computer. Dozens of systems were marked with small symbols. "They're out there, waiting for a signal that it's time to come home. And now that the galaxy knows we exist again, now that they've seen what happens when you threaten us, maybe it's finally safe to wake them up." Dr. Velinara stared at the chart. "How many people are we talking about?" "Millions," Jae-woo said. "Quietly, sleeping in ships hidden in nebulae, in asteroid fields, in the dark spaces between stars, waiting for someone to tell them that the war is over and they can start building again." When they reached Council Space, the news of what had happened in the Void sector had already spread. The explosion had been seen from multiple systems. Sensor readings of the battle were being analyzed by military experts who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Jae-woo stood before the Galactic Council once again. But this time he wasn't a myth or a legend. He was a living reminder of what his species could do when pushed too far. "Honored members," he said in the same chamber where Min-hee had first presented her research, "I am Jae-woo, captain of the human colony ship New Hope, survivor of the species you thought was extinct. I stand before you not as a conqueror or a threat, but as someone who wants to make sure what happened to my people never happens to anyone else." The chamber was completely silent. Even the background hum of the station system seemed muted. "The hegemony is not gone," Jae-woo continued. "What you saw in the Void sector was just one fleet. There are others, and they will come for you eventually. They always do, but now you know they can be fought. Now you know they can be beaten." He activated a holographic display showing the locations of the sleeping human colonies. "My people are waking up. We're coming home to a galaxy that forgot us, but we haven't forgotten you. We offer our alliance, our technology, our knowledge, not because we want to rule, but because we want to make sure everyone has the chance to live free." In the back of the chamber, Admiral Kefver's replacement listened with growing dread. The hegemony's greatest nightmare was coming true. Humanity was returning, and this time they wouldn't be alone. The age of myths was ending. The age of legends had begun, and in a small cryopod aboard Min-hee's research station, a little girl named Hai-jin was beginning to wake up to a galaxy that would never be the same.